Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about politics as usual. And by that, I mean a whole bunch of unnecessary talking points that realistically do not matter. We are going to talk about Texas. We are going to talk about the White House. We're going to talk about the back and forth that has been going on between the officials. And then we are going to talk about how literally none of it is relevant to the subject at hand. Okay, so what's going on, right? There is a belief that the federal government response to the hurricane that hit Texas, well, it just came too late, and there's a delay. The White House has indicated that they didn't get the request for the major disaster declaration and that they can't do anything without that. Texas officials have said, well, that's not our fault. If you needed that, you had FEMA people here. You could have just called one of your own officials and they could have put me on the phone. I don't believe the White House has actually said it, but the implication certainly seems to be there in subtext that the governor of Texas was paying more attention to Taiwan than the hurricane that hit the state. The idea that FEMA officials were in Texas, that has nothing to do with the conversation. FEMA can show up and advise, coordinate, help, do all kinds of things without a request. They can volunteer to do that. However, if the state wants the federal government to pay for, I want to say 75% of the costs, they have to request a major disaster declaration. It's paperwork. It has dates on it. So we know what happened. What's the timeline? It looks like on July 6th, for a whole bunch of counties, the state issued emergency declarations for those counties on the 6th. Landfall occurred on the 8th. The request for a major disaster declaration occurred on the 9th. It was approved by the White House, reportedly on the 9th. There's your timeline. None of this back and forth actually matters. This is all paperwork. Now, here's the thing. People are going to see that, and they're going to blame Texas. They're going to blame the Texas officials because they have probably heard of times where state officials have requested an emergency declaration, a major disaster declaration, prior to landfall. That does happen, but it's kind of rare, actually. Normally, the state officials want to kind of look at the damage before making that request. And that's especially true of hurricanes that are on the lower end. You know, if you have a Cat 5 coming in, yeah, you go ahead and make the request. You're going to need it. But that may not necessarily be true with a Cat 1. Really, looking at this, as far as who's responsible for the delay, I don't really actually see a huge delay. Not one big enough to be arguing about. You're talking about one day. That doesn't seem huge to me. Again, this doesn't stop FEMA from coordinating or advising or anything like that. Texas officials have said that FEMA was there doing this. It has to do with the government cutting the check. Biden wanted them to make that request so he could go ahead and sign it, because he can't do it without a request from the governor. He can't approve something that isn't submitted. It was submitted and it was approved immediately. One day later, I mean, I don't even really get what the back and forth is about, to be honest. I mean, sure, ideally, it could have come in earlier, but it seems like much ado about nothing. It seems like a bunch of political posturing. From what I understand, the only thing as far as the response that hasn't been up to par is getting the electric back on, which, I mean, it's Texas. That shouldn't be a surprise at this point. So the back and forth, it's occurring. It seems completely unnecessary. Not just because there doesn't seem to have actually been a huge significant delay of any kind, but because it's paperwork. It has dates. There's no reason to argue about this. Yes, the state of Texas could have done it earlier. They could have done it on the 6th. But realistically, that's not super common. And from what I understand, the Biden administration approved the request once they got it within hours. So I'm just not seeing it. As far as the attention that's being devoted to this, it honestly looks like perhaps a politician is trying to create the idea that there was a delay when there wasn't. When you look at this timeline, when it comes to the actual requests and the declarations, I don't really get it, to be honest. This is definitely a situation where there is a lot of political posturing because, well, it's election time. That doesn't help the people who need help. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.